Today, we're diving into something pretty incredible, an ancient prophecy from the book of Zechariah and how it seems to intersect, in remarkable detail, with one of the greatest military campaigns in all of history, the March of Alexander the Great.
So here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll set the scene. Then we'll go verse by verse through the prophecy, comparing it directly to what we know happened historically. And finally, we'll take a step back and look at the bigger picture. All right, so our story really starts by looking at two distinct points in time, separated by a full 200 years. You've got the prophecy, and then way down the road, you've got the conqueror.
And this is what makes it so fascinating. On one side, you have the prophet Zechariah, writing around 520 BC while under Persian rule. Then you flash forward 2 centuries, to 332 BC, and here comes Alexander the Great, marching his army right through that same region. So the big question is, are these two things connected?
I mean, that's really what this all boils down to. Could a prophet, writing all that time ago, have actually laid out the exact military path of this legendary conqueror? Let's dig into the evidence, starting with the cities along the Philistine coast. Okay, so we're turning now to chapter 9, verse 5 of Zechariah, and this verse gets really specific, describing how these powerful Philistine city-states are going to react when they see Alexander's army coming their way.
Listen to how specific that is. It's not just some vague prediction of doom and gloom. It's calling out distinct outcomes for each city. Ashkelon will be afraid. Gaza will be filled with sorrow. Ekron will see its hopes crushed. And then, a really specific prediction, the king of Gaza will die. So let's break this down. We basically have 4 testable predictions right here. Did Ashkelon really react with fear? Was Gaza's experience sorrowful? Was Ekron's hope for nothing? And most importantly, what actually happened to the king of Gaza? Let's check the history books.
And, wow, when you lay it out like this, the parallels are just stunning. The historical record shows that Ashkelon, having seen what Alexander did to the city of Tyre, surrendered immediately. They were terrified. Ekron's hope of standing against him was completely dashed. And Gaza? It held out for 2 long, brutal months. A very sorrowful siege that ended with its king being captured and executed. It lines up perfectly.
Okay, now in verses 6 and 7, the prophecy kind of zooms out. It's not just about the immediate fate of these cities anymore, but about the long-term future for the Philistine people as a whole.
Now, what this is predicting is a huge political and cultural shakeup. It's talking about the end of their own rulers, the end of their pagan religious practices, and eventually the total absorption of the Philistine people.
And we need to be clear about this word bastard. It's not a personal insult here. In this ancient political context, it simply means a foreign ruler, someone not from the native Philistine royal line, an illegitimate king, so to speak.
And wouldn't you know it, this lines up perfectly with Alexander's famous strategy. As he conquered new lands, he would install his own Macedonian and Greek governors to run things. This policy directly fulfilled that prophecy of a foreigner ruling in the Philistine city of Ashdod, ending their independence for good.
The prophecy also said the Philistines would be assimilated, just like the ancient Jebusites were absorbed into Israel. And again, history tells the same story. After Alexander, Greek culture, Hellenism, spread everywhere, and the unique Philistine identity just fades from the historical record. They were absorbed.
So while all these surrounding cities are facing judgment, verse 8 completely flips the script. It makes a dramatic and frankly, stunning promise of divine protection for one very specific place.
God will protect mine house, which is understood to mean the temple in Jerusalem. And get this line, because of him that passeth by. What an incredible description of a conquering army just marching through a region.
This sets up the million-dollar question. Alexander had just flattened his opposition in Tyre and Gaza. Jerusalem had been loyal to Persia, his mortal enemy. Logically, Jerusalem should have been next on the chopping block. So, what happened?
For this, we have to turn to this amazing story from the 1st century historian Josephus. He describes something that sounds almost unbelievable. Not a battle, but a peaceful meeting between the world's most powerful general and the high priest.
According to this account, Alexander didn't attack. He actually bowed to the high priest, explaining that he'd seen this very man in a vision that encouraged him to start his campaign. He then entered Jerusalem peacefully and even offered sacrifices at the Jewish temple. Absolutely incredible.
Now, it's a fantastic story, right? But with any historical claim this dramatic, you have to ask, can we actually verify this? Did it really happen this way?
And here's where we hit a historical debate. On the one hand, Josephus' story perfectly explains why Jerusalem was spared when everyone else wasn't. But, and this is a big but,
Alexander's own Greek and Roman biographers never mention a visit to Jerusalem, not once. So what's the truth? Well, many historians land somewhere in the middle. Maybe the vision part was a later addition, but some kind of peaceful surrender, which was strategically smart for both Alexander and Jerusalem, likely did happen. The bottom line is, the city was spared.
So let's put all the pieces together. Let's trace Alexander's path one last time and see just how closely it follows that ancient blueprint from the book of Zechariah.
When you lay it out on a timeline, the step-by-step parallel is it's hard to ignore. As Alexander's army moved down that coast, the fate of each city lined up precisely with the sequence and the specific outcomes described by Zechariah 200 years earlier: fear, sorrow, shame, foreign rule, and then protection. So we're left with this question: what are we to make of this? Is it just a massive coincidence, a predictable historical pattern, or is it something else entirely? The alignment between Zechariah's words and Alexander's march is stunningly precise, and it really makes you wonder what it means when history seems to follow a script written centuries before the events ever took place.